The wind cut through the empty metal ruins like a knife, carrying with it the smell of rust and old fires. Jalen had walked this stretch of the frontier world many times, scavenging scraps from the abandoned settlements. The sky above was a dull gray, and the sun struggled to peek through thick clouds. His boots crunched over broken metal plates and shattered glass as he moved carefully, listening for any sound that could signal danger or life. At first it was only the wind. It whistled through the skeletal remains of buildings and toppled walls, making the old metal hum. Jalen adjusted his pack and stepped lightly, scanning for anything worth taking. Supplies were rare in these parts. Food, water, even fuel for his small rover, all were hard to come by. He had learned long ago to move quietly and not expect kindness from the universe. Then he heard it. A soft, high-pitched sound that made him freeze. It wasn't wind. It wasn't the clanging of loose metal. It was a voice. A small voice, almost a whisper, asking for something. Please, any scraps. Jalen's heart jumped. He crouched behind a twisted sheet of metal, peering around carefully. The voice came again, faint and trembling. It was polite, almost childlike. Leftovers, please. He blinked, thinking he must be imagining things. No one lived here. The settlement had been abandoned for years. And yet, the voice had spoken with hope. Hesitation tugged at him. He knew that venturing closer could be dangerous. This planet was home to creatures he had only heard about in stories. Legends told of dragons, immense, terrifying beasts that could crush a person with one swipe of their claws or incinerate entire fields with fire. They were said to hunt anything that moved, especially humans. Jalen swallowed hard. But the voice sounded so small, so weak, and so human in its tone of need. He stepped cautiously, making sure each footfall was soft. The source of the sound came from a small fire, barely more than a spark, in the corner of a collapsed building. And that's when he saw them. 3 tiny creatures no bigger than a child crouched near the fire. Their bodies were covered in scales that shimmered faintly in the dim light, colors blending into bronze, green, and soft blue. Their wings were too small to lift them yet folded awkwardly against their backs. They had eyes wide and round, filled with hunger and fear. Jalen's breath caught. Dragons, baby dragons. His mind raced. These creatures were dangerous even in this weak, tiny form. But they were also so small, so fragile, that his instincts screamed to protect rather than attack. He noticed how they shivered, their little snouts sniffing the air for warmth, their tails twitching with nervous energy. One of them looked up at him. Its eyes were large and luminous, filled with a mix of curiosity and caution. It opened its mouth and a soft, almost human-like voice whispered, "Please, food?" Jalen froze again. He had heard stories of dragons speaking in guttural roars or terrifying screams, not like this. These voices were soft, polite, almost shy. They did not threaten him. They did not demand. They asked. He slowly reached into his pack, retrieving the small ration pack he had saved for himself. The baby dragons tilted their heads, watching him with wide, careful eyes. When he broke the food into small pieces and laid them on the ground near them, they hesitated for a moment before moving forward. The smallest one, bronze-scaled, crept first. Its tiny claws scraped the metal floor as it nibbled on a piece of dried protein bar. The other 2 followed, crunching softly. Jalen breathed slowly, trying not to scare them away. He could feel a strange mix of fear and awe. While they ate, he noticed how weak they looked. Their wings twitched nervously, and their bellies seemed hollow. It was clear they hadn't eaten for days. And yet, there was a quiet strength in their small bodies, a determination to survive. He wondered how long they had been alone, how many dangers they had faced. A sudden sound made him tense. The metal above him groaned. The wind picked up and shadows shifted across the broken walls. The baby dragons froze too, looking around in panic. Jalen's hand went to the small knife at his belt. He scanned the sky, expecting the worst. But it wasn't the sky that moved first. It was the ground. A deep vibration ran through the metal floor, rattling the fire and the debris. The baby dragons hissed softly, and their small bodies pressed closer together. Jalen's heart pounded. He knew that feeling, the rumble of something enormous, something alive. He took a cautious step back, trying to keep his movements slow. The vibration grew stronger, each thump resonating through his chest. The sky darkened as a shadow fell across the ruins. Jalen's breath caught in his throat. Whatever it was huge. He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to escape. But he couldn't leave the babies behind. They were defenseless. And somehow he felt a connection, a strange, unexplainable bond. The shadow moved closer and Jalen's stomach twisted. He slowly lifted his eyes. And then he saw it, a glimpse of massive scales glinting in the dim light, wings stretching wider than any building, a tail coiling behind like a living pillar. His knees weakened and he stumbled back slightly, frozen in terror and disbelief. The baby dragons chirped nervously, their tiny voices trembling in unison. They did not move toward the massive creature, but neither did they cower in terror. It was as if they were waiting for something. Jalen's mind raced. He had heard legends, stories from travelers and old holologs, about dragons attacking humans on sight. He had never believed he would see one, and yet here it was, something alive, enormous and terrifying. And then he noticed something he did not expect. The great creature did not roar. It did not lunge. It simply paused, watching, its enormous head lowering slightly. Its eyes were sharp, calculating, but there was something else. Exhaustion, perhaps, or pain. Jalen's breath caught. He realized that the stories had never told the whole truth. Dragons were dangerous, yes. But maybe they were not always cruel. Maybe, sometimes, they simply protected what mattered most. He sank slowly to one knee, keeping his hands visible, and whispered softly, almost to himself, "I just want to help them." The baby dragon's eyes flicked to him, then to the massive shadow behind them. The smallest one chirped softly again, almost as if it understood. Jalen felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, a mix of fear, awe, and hope. The shadow shifted again closer. Jalen could feel the heat radiating from it, smell the faint scent of smoke and old fire. He swallowed hard and waited, unsure if the next second would bring life, or death. And then, for a moment, everything stopped. The wind hushed, the vibrations paused, and the ruins seemed to hold their breath. The human, the baby dragons, and the unknown giant waited together in silence, each aware of the fragile line between danger and trust. The shadow moved slowly, stretching across the ruined settlement like a dark storm. Jalen's heart pounded in his chest, and his palms were slick with sweat. The baby dragons huddled together near the small fire, their wings trembling as they looked up at the growing darkness. The wind had died down, and the air felt heavy, almost as if the world itself were holding its breath. Jalen wanted to run. Every instinct in his body screamed to flee. But his legs felt frozen, rooted to the ground. He could not leave the hatchlings behind. They had trusted him, and he had no idea what would happen to them if he ran. Slowly, he took a deep breath and lifted his eyes. And then he saw it. The creature was massive. Its scales were dark and jagged, mottled with scars and old burns. Its wings were enormous, stretching wider than the tallest ruined building in the settlement. Its head was raised high, nostrils flaring, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. The sheer size of it made the ground feel small beneath him. Jalen froze completely, unable to take a step or even blink. The baby dragons let out tiny whimpers and pressed closer to the fire. They looked at the giant shadow as if it were both familiar and terrifying. Jalen realized with a shock that it must be their mother. She did not roar. She did not move aggressively. She simply stood there, every muscle in her massive body tense, her eyes scanning the small fire, the hatchlings, and finally Jalen. Her wings twitched slightly, and her tail coiled behind her like a living whip. He could feel the vibrations of her breath through the ground. Jalen's mind raced. Stories had always painted dragons as monsters, unfeeling predators. He had never imagined seeing one up close, and alive. And yet here she was, massive and powerful and exhausted. Every movement seemed deliberate, careful, measured. She did not attack. She did not threaten. She only observed. One of the baby dragons chirped softly. The mother's eyes flicked down at her children, then back at Jalen. For a moment, there was a strange silence, broken only by the soft crackle of the small fire. Jalen could hear his own heart thudding in his ears. He knew he had only seconds to act. Any wrong move could provoke her. Slowly, he lowered himself to the ground, keeping his hands visible and making no sudden movements. I only want to help," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I mean no harm." The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly, a faint hiss escaping her throat. The sound was low, almost mournful. She shifted her weight, and Jalen could see the deep scars along her massive body, old wounds that had never fully healed. Her wings, though large and strong, drooped slightly at the edges, frayed from battle or age. It became clear to Jalen that she was not attacking because she was dangerous. She was weak, wounded, starving. Somehow, in all the stories he had heard, no one had ever mentioned a dragon could grow tired, could struggle, could be desperate. The baby dragon stepped closer to their mother, pressing against her enormous legs. She lowered her head, touching one small hatchling gently with the tip of her snout. The sound she made now was softer, almost a sigh, and the little dragons chirped back, relieved and calm. Jalen's chest tightened. He realized this massive, terrifying creature was not only a mother but a protector, struggling to keep her children alive. He took another careful step forward, making sure to stay low and slow. The dragon's head tilted slightly, her glowing eyes tracking his every move. He felt the heat from her body even from a distance, a warmth that contrasted with the cold metal ruins around them. He reached into his pack, trying to find the courage to show her he was not a threat. A small piece of dried protein bar was all he could spare. He laid it carefully on the ground near the hatchlings, watching for any reaction. The babies hesitated, then began eating. The mother did not move to interfere, though her eyes never left him. Jalen noticed a soft rumble from deep within her chest, a vibration that shook the ground slightly. He froze. Was this a warning? Or a sigh of relief? He could not tell. The shadows shifted as her massive body moved slightly, wings twitching as if she were preparing for flight, or for battle. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Jalen stayed crouched, barely breathing. Slowly, he realized that she was studying him, assessing whether he could be trusted. Every movement he made was cautious. Every sound was measured. The wind whispered through the broken metal, carrying the faint smell of scorched earth and something else, smoke from her old burns. He thought about retreating, but then he looked at the hatchlings. Their tiny eyes were filled with trust. They had accepted him, and he could not abandon them now. He had to find a way to help, no matter how dangerous it seemed. Finally, the dragon lowered her head closer to the ground, letting out a low, rumbling sigh that vibrated through Jalen's chest. He interpreted it as acceptance, or at least tolerance. She was not attacking. Not yet. She was watching, waiting, as if she wanted to understand this strange human who dared to feed her children. Jalen dared a small step closer, keeping his voice low. I won't hurt them. I won't hurt you. He extended his hand slowly, holding another piece of food. The mother's eyes flicked to it, then back to him. She did not move, but she did not retreat either. The baby dragons chirped softly, encouraging him. One even nudged the food toward the mother with its tiny nose. The great dragon blinked slowly, then touched the food gently with the tip of her snout, testing it. She ate a small piece, then pulled back, watching him carefully. Jalen felt a small spark of hope. If he could keep her calm, keep her from attacking, maybe, just maybe, he could help them all survive. The thought sent a shiver of both fear and excitement through him. He sank to one knee, letting his hands rest on the ground in a sign of peace. The dragon lowered her massive head slightly, the heat from her breath washing over him. The baby dragons nestled closer, chirping softly. For the first time, Jalen felt a fragile trust forming between them. A bond between human and dragon that defied everything he had been taught to believe. Above them, the sky darkened further, clouds swirling as if the universe were watching. The wind rose again, carrying the scent of rain and ozone. Jalen knew this was only the beginning. The true challenge had yet to come. But for now, he had survived the shadow that blocked the sky, and he had earned a small measure of trust from a creature the galaxy feared above all else. Jalen watched the massive dragon lower her head slowly, wings folding slightly at her sides. She did not move aggressively, but every muscle in her enormous body was tense. He could see now that she was badly wounded. Scars ran along her scales, deep cuts that had not fully healed. One of her legs had a strange bend, likely broken in a past fight. Her breaths came in slow, labored huffs, each one shaking the ground faintly. The baby dragons chirped softly, pressing closer to her massive form. They were trying to comfort her, though Jalen knew it could not heal such deep injuries. He glanced at the small food he had offered. It was enough for the babies to survive a day or two, but not for a dragon this size. And they were not the only ones in danger, she was. Jalen's mind raced. He had learned to survive on the frontier by avoiding danger, by never trusting anything stronger than himself. But this was different. This dragon, terrifying and powerful, was not attacking him. She was hurt, tired, and protecting her children. And she had no one else. Slowly, Jalen reached into his pack. He had a few medical supplies. Bandages, antiseptic, a small pain relief injector, some synthetic nutrients. Not nearly enough for a creature of this size, but it was all he had. He spoke softly, hoping she could understand. I can help you. I don't know if it will fix everything, but I can try. Please let me. The dragon's glowing eyes followed every move. Her tail twitched slightly, then stilled. Jalen took this as permission, or at least a lack of refusal. He moved closer, keeping low, and began examining the cuts on her legs and chest. They were deep, some oozing dark blood. He worked slowly, cleaning the wounds and applying antiseptic as best he could. Every so often she hissed softly, a warning more than pain. Jalen flinched at the sound, but he kept going. He wrapped bandages carefully, making sure not to touch the most sensitive areas. It was exhausting work, and he could feel the weight of her massive body pressing down on the ground around him. But he did not stop. The baby dragons watched silently, their small heads tilting as they studied him. One of the smallest, a bronze-scaled hatchling, chirped and nudged his hand. Jalen smiled weakly. "I know," he whispered. "I'm trying. I won't hurt her." Hours seemed to pass. The sun dipped lower behind the gray clouds, and shadows stretched across the ruined buildings. Jalen's arms ached, his hands were scraped from sharp metal and stone, but he kept working. Slowly, carefully, he managed to clean and bandage the worst of the wounds. Then he mixed the synthetic nutrients with water and offered it to her. The dragon hesitated. Her massive head lowered, nostrils flaring as she sniffed the liquid. Finally, she drank carefully, eyes never leaving Jalen. The sound of her gulping was loud, echoing across the empty settlement. The baby dragons chirped excitedly as she drank more, and Jalen allowed himself a small sigh of relief. He realized then what the galaxy had never taught him, and probably never would. Stories spoke of dragons as merciless hunters, of humans as fragile and weak. But here, in this moment, a human was helping a dragon survive. Not because he had to, not because it was safe, but because he chose to. That choice, Jalen understood, was something unique. Humans had a strange kind of courage. Not the courage of strength, but the courage to act when the odds were against them. To risk life for others, even creatures that could destroy them in an instant. He felt a strange pride in that thought, though he did not dare express it aloud. Pride could be dangerous when facing a dragon mother. As he worked, the dragon's breathing slowed. The wounds would not heal completely overnight, but she would survive. Her eyes, once sharp and fierce, softened slightly. She lowered her massive head closer to Jalen, not in attack but in trust. It was a gesture so simple, yet so profound that it made him pause. "You're different," he whispered, though he doubted she understood. "Most humans would have run. Most humans would have left you." He looked at the hatchlings, now asleep against her warm body, and felt a pang in his chest. They were safe because of him. Somehow, that mattered more than anything else. The wind picked up again, rattling the broken metal around them. Jalen pulled his jacket tighter, feeling the cold bite at his skin. He had spent countless nights alone in these ruins, and yet none had felt as alive, or as important, as this one. The dragon's presence filled the space around him, immense and terrifying, yet strangely protective. He knew he could not stay here forever. Other creatures, other scavengers might come looking. But for now he had a small window, a chance to keep them alive. He settled down on one knee beside her, keeping his hand on the largest bandage to make sure it stayed in place. The baby dragons stirred occasionally but remained quiet, comforted by both their mother and the human. Hours passed. Night fell fully, and the gray clouds in the sky began to break, revealing faint stars. Jalen looked up, thinking about how small he was in the vast galaxy, how fragile humans often seemed. And yet, in that small clearing among the ruins, he realized something that no lesson from the galaxy could teach him. Even the weakest could make a difference. Even a human could change the life of a dragon. The dragon mother shifted slightly, lowering her massive head onto the ground near him. Her warm breath washed over him, and he felt the faint tremor of her heartbeat through the floor. The baby dragons nestled closer, their tiny wings folding protectively against her sides. Jalen stayed there for the rest of the night, hands ready, eyes alert, but heart strangely calm. He understood now that survival was not just about strength. It was about choice, compassion, trust. The galaxy might fear dragons. It might underestimate humans. But here, in the quiet of the ruins, a human had chosen to help when it seemed impossible. And that choice, Jalen knew, was stronger than any weapon. The days passed slowly, each one blending into the next. Jalen stayed with the dragon mother and her hatchlings, moving carefully through the ruins to gather food and clean water. He had no idea how long he could survive here, but he knew he could not abandon them. Every morning he checked the mother's wounds, adjusted bandages, and gave her the synthetic nutrients he had brought. She tolerated it, watching him closely, her glowing eyes calm but alert. The baby dragons followed him everywhere, their small wings flapping clumsily as they explored the ruins. They chirped at every movement, curious and playful, yet wary of the vast world around them. Jalen laughed quietly at their antics, trying to keep his voice soft so as not to alarm their mother. He had learned quickly that patience and calm were more powerful than any weapon. But the galaxy was beginning to notice. Sensors from distant ships picked up unusual energy signatures, warmth, movement, and life on a planet that was supposed to be abandoned. Scouts reported strange readings. A human presence combined with unknown biological signals far larger than any ordinary animal. Rumors began to spread through space stations and colonies. A human had been spotted near dragons. News traveled quickly, faster than Jalen could imagine. Merchants whispered in spaceports. Pilots spoke of seeing flickering lights in abandoned worlds. Traders who had heard stories of dragons passing through these systems now told new tales. Of a human not only surviving near dragons but caring for them. The dragon mother seemed to sense the change. Her head lifted often, scanning the skies with sharp, calculating eyes. She had survived countless battles, yet she had never faced the galaxy's attention in this way. The baby dragons chirped nervously when distant ships passed overhead, sensing curiosity or danger from above. Jalen understood that their survival depended on secrecy. He had hoped to remain unnoticed to help them quietly. But he also realized that what he had done, offering care to creatures the galaxy feared, was extraordinary. It was dangerous, yes, but it was also a truth that no sensor or report could change. Humans acted in ways that even dragons could not predict. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the jagged ruins, a small scout ship hovered quietly above the settlement. Its lights flickered, scanning the area. Jalen froze, but the dragon mother stepped forward, massive wings rising slightly in a protective display. She did not roar, she did not attack. She only stood between him and the approaching strangers, her eyes bright with intelligence and caution. The ship paused. Sensors picked up the human and the massive creature, and the scanner struggled to categorize what they saw. Jalen realized that this moment could change everything. Other humans, other dragons, even other species across the galaxy might soon understand something new. Strength was not only in claws and fire but in choice and trust. He walked slowly toward the mother, speaking softly. "I won't let them hurt you," he said. The baby dragons chirped in response, stepping closer to him and their mother. The creature watched, her gaze unblinking, massive wings still raised just slightly. The air felt electric as if the universe itself were waiting. The scout ship lingered for hours, unable to comprehend fully what it had found. Reports back to the galaxy were confused. Human with dragons, peaceful, protective, the messages said. Across the stars, species that had long feared humans and dragons alike began to question what they knew. Humans, once considered weak and fragile, were now being seen in a different light. Their courage was not always in battle, it was in their choices, their compassion, and their willingness to act when no one else would. Back on the ground, Jalen continued to care for the dragon mother. He cleaned the worst of her wounds and gave her small rations. She tolerated his hands, lowering her massive head to the ground as if granting permission. Her trust was not blind, it was measured, cautious, but undeniable. The baby dragons chirped happily, settling near her legs as she stretched slightly, testing the strength of her wings. At night, Jalen lay under a metal sheet watching the stars. He thought about the stories he had been told as a child, tales of humans as weak, dragons as unstoppable. But what he saw here, in the quiet of the ruins, was something different. The galaxy did not understand humans yet. They did not understand that courage was not always loud. That compassion could be a force stronger than fire or steel. That even the smallest choice, to help, to protect, to trust, could echo across the stars. Days turned into a week. More ships passed overhead, scanning, observing, yet keeping their distance. Word of the human and dragons spread quietly, carried by sensors and whispers across colonies. Merchants, pilots, and traders told stories of a strange bond forming in the ruins of a forgotten world. A bond that was changing the way the galaxy thought about survival, power, and life itself. Jalen knew that this was only the beginning. Other humans might hear the tale. Other dragons might sense the presence of someone who dared to act differently. He did not know if the galaxy would accept what he had done, or if fear and misunderstanding would chase them again. But he did know this: in that small clearing among the ruins he had made a difference. He had acted when the world expected inaction. The dragon mother stretched her massive wings slowly, testing the air. The baby dragons flapped clumsily beside her, learning, growing, surviving. Jalen offered them food, and for the first time he felt a sense of calm. They were not safe forever, but for now they were alive. And that life, fragile and precious, had changed something in him too. Above them the stars seemed to shimmer differently. The galaxy, distant and vast, was beginning to notice humans in a new way. Not as weak creatures, not as fragile beings, not as pawns in a game of power, but as unpredictable, compassionate, dangerous in ways the galaxy could not yet measure. Humans could choose mercy when it was easier to choose fear. Humans could risk themselves for others, even for dragons. And the dragon mother, watching her children and this human who had saved her, seemed to understand it too. Her massive head lowered slightly, a soft rumble vibrating through the ground. Jalen reached out slowly, letting his hand brush her scales. The baby dragons chirped softly, settling against her sides. For the first time he felt a real connection between species, a bond that was stronger than fear. He looked up at the stars and for the first time he imagined that perhaps the galaxy would learn something new about humans. Something that no story, no legend, no censor could fully capture. That humans, though small and fragile in appearance, could act with courage, with compassion, and with a strength that changed everything. And in that quiet clearing, among ruined buildings, soft fires, and the gentle breathing of dragons, Jalen knew that the stars were beginning to whisper. The wind was colder now, cutting through the ruins like a knife. Jalen stood near the fire, watching the baby dragons flap their small, awkward wings. The mother dragon rested beside them, her massive head lowered, eyes half closed but alert. The days of hiding were over. The galaxy had noticed. Ships passed above, scanning the settlement, curious, cautious, uncertain. Jalen could feel the tension in the air. Every sound of a passing ship made his heart race. He had prepared for attack, for the worst. But something was different. The dragon mother did not shift aggressively. Her massive wings, though capable of striking down anything nearby, remained folded, relaxed enough to show she was not preparing for war. It was then that the first ship landed nearby, a sleek scout vessel, its hull glinting under the dim sun. Its doors opened, revealing humans, and not all of them were armed. A few stepped cautiously, scanning the settlement, then froze as they saw the massive dragon resting on the ground. The mother raised her head slightly, eyes glowing faintly, but she did not roar. She did not move. She simply watched. Jalen stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. "It's okay," he said, his voice calm but firm. "She won't hurt you." The humans hesitated, whispering among themselves. They had heard the stories, the rumors of a human living near dragons, surviving, even protecting them. But seeing it was different. Seeing a massive dragon mother, scarred and tired, with tiny hatchlings beside her, and a human standing close, unafraid, it was almost unbelievable. One of the scouts stepped forward, a communicator in hand. "Report, this is unusual. She's not attacking. Human appears unharmed. Children, dragon hatchlings, present." His voice trembled slightly with awe. The dragon mother tilted her massive head, studying the newcomers. Jalen could see her thoughts clearly in her posture. This was a threat, yet she sensed no immediate danger. She had survived countless battles, yet she recognized a choice here, one not based on instinct but on observation. Slowly the lead scout lowered his device. He stepped closer, cautiously. Jalen raised a hand to signal the mother to stay calm. She shifted slightly but obeyed. The scout's voice was quiet now. "Amazing, humans, dragons, together. Impossible." Jalen realized then that the galaxy had begun to understand something new. Humans were not weak. They were not just prey or fragile beings. They were creatures capable of action beyond survival. Creatures capable of compassion, courage, and understanding. Even when it seemed impossible. The mother dragon let out a soft rumble, vibrating through the ground. She lowered her head further, almost as if giving permission, a sign of trust. The hatchlings chirped softly, flapping their tiny wings. Jalen smiled, feeling a deep relief. They had survived, not just physically but morally, emotionally. The galaxy's fear had not destroyed them. Choice had. Compassion had. More ships arrived over the next days. Some were military, some research vessels, some curious travelers. Each observed from a distance, recording, scanning, and sometimes approaching carefully. Every time, the dragon mother remained calm, as if she had understood a simple truth. This human, small and fragile as he seemed, had chosen to act with care. And that choice was more powerful than claws or fire. Jalen continued his work, tending to the dragon mother's wounds, giving small portions of food to the hatchlings, and moving quietly among the visitors. He could feel their eyes on him, scanning, trying to understand. Many were afraid. Some were curious. A few were amazed. But all were learning something that had been invisible to the galaxy for centuries. Humans could be unpredictable in the best ways. The baby dragons grew stronger each day. Their wings flapped more confidently, their chirps louder, and their trust in Jalen absolute. He watched them soar short distances, landing clumsily but successfully. The mother observed from a short distance, her posture relaxed but protective. For the first time, Jalen felt a strange kind of peace. They were safe for now and the galaxy was watching. Then came the moment that changed everything. A massive dragon appeared on the horizon, a lone adult drawn by the unusual signals of life and trust. The scouts froze, fearing an attack. But the mother dragon stepped forward, wings half raised, standing between Jalen and the newcomer. She did not roar. She did not strike. She only rumbled softly, a vibration that seemed to communicate calm and warning at the same time. The newcomer paused, scanning the scene. Jalen realized the other dragon understood the same truth he had come to know. This human was different. Dangerous, not because of weapons, not because of fire, but because he had chosen trust and had survived. The baby dragons chirped in greeting, and the new dragon blinked slowly, seeming to recognize them. For a moment, the ruined settlement was silent except for the soft wind and the faint crackle of fire. Then, one by one, the hatchlings flapped their wings, the mother shifted her massive body slightly, and Jalen stepped forward, hands open. The galaxy's fear was here, but it did not take hold. Instead, understanding began to grow. The humans, the dragons, the scouts, everyone sensed the power of choice. Not violence, not domination, but compassion. In a single act of courage, a human had changed the way even dragons saw him, and the way the galaxy could begin to see humanity. Jalen looked up at the stars. The universe was vast, full of danger, mystery, and power beyond imagining. But he had learned that survival was not just about strength or firepower. It was about decisions. About trust. About choosing to act rightly when the easier choice was fear. The mother dragon rumbled softly, curling her massive wings around the hatchlings. Jalen stepped closer, his hand brushing the tip of her scaled snout. The baby dragons chirped in delight, settling against him and their mother. Above them, the stars shimmered, distant and cold, yet alive with possibility. And in that moment, Jalen realized the truth. What survived in the galaxy was not fear. Not anger. Not hatred. It was courage. Compassion. Choice. Humanity. The scout ships recorded everything and the stories spread quickly. Across colonies and sectors, travelers and scientists whispered of the human who had dared to protect dragons, the dragons who had trusted him, and the galaxy that had begun to see humans differently. Fear would always exist, but it would no longer be the only force shaping life among the stars. Jalen watched the baby dragons soar, clumsy yet free, circling their mother, and for the first time in a long while he smiled. They were alive. The mother was alive. And the galaxy had learned something it had never known before. The stars had whispered and humanity had answered, not with fire or weapon but with choice and with heart. And that choice, Jalen knew, would survive longer than any empire, any war, any fear. It would endure in the hearts of dragons, humans, and all who watched, a quiet power stronger than any force the galaxy had ever feared.